Yeah, hi, and welcome to Art 13131, and we're in week 6 still. We're going to talk about assignment number 11, which is drawing with shading only and using no lines to draw. I'll show you an example of that. Is basically this is a portrait with shading only, no lines, if you'll notice. There's basically only shading that makes this happen. Shading with the side of the pencil primarily, um, and not real scratchy, kind of smooth. All the highlights are just left void of graphite, or they were erased out. Maybe there was some tone in the hair right there, but they erased it out, and it makes a highlight as you erase kind of thin with the contour of the hair. And it doesn't have to be a portrait. It can be anything. So I'll show you some other examples of that. But there's great contrast here in very dark areas, very light areas, dark, light, and everything else in between. But there's no lines that make that crevice or the lips or the eyes or whatever. It's just that that tone meets that tone and that tone meets that tone, and they end somewhere with another tone possibly meeting up. This has a nice background to it, which is darker on one side, maybe lighter on the other, which you can do. You can change the background with light and dark tones. And but the most important thing is that wherever it meets up with your subject, your background, that it is either lighter or darker than the subject matter, because then it will separate itself from that. So you don't want that tone to be exactly the same as that tone, so that they separate themselves. So that's what you want. This is a You can do a portrait. You can do any subject you want. It's up to you. I'll show you some other real more simpler ones. There's something like the ball here. There's a lot of dark shading back here, light shading back here, light and darks here. This is something we studied in a video in the beginning of the term, and it was about light logic and light source on your subject and your shading accordingly. Well, you could do this for your study of shading with no lines, because there's no lines in this that are defining the outs, outer edge of the ball or anything. It's just as one shade meets the other, one shade meets another, one shade. There's no border line to anything. So that's what I'm stressing here, is that there's no border line or defining line in between everything. It's just one tone meets the other. Yeah, there's some lines the way they shaded this, which isn't really accurate, because these are probably not scratchy. They're more smooth like this. If that's the model, then everything should have been shaded like these. Here, the ball, the cone, the cylinder, these, the blocks, not as much. So that's what you're looking for, is that smooth tone connecting, making a shape happen without any lines that are defining the subject or separating it from something else. So you can use those as examples. Um, Here's another one. It's just that that tone ends and that tone starts. That's what they're doing. They might have mapped this out by drawing a thin line, and then when the shading came in, they got rid of that thin line. So whatever you're going to draw, don't put any lines in it. Don't borderline it. Don't any of that. Just use shading only. Okay. Some of these are like that. Of course, this one is. It has maybe very thin, I call them shading lines, that aren't defined border-ish as much. Okay. But you pick the subject and draw without the lines. Okay. Only shading. Now we're going to talk about the tree with personality. Well, here's several examples here, and you're going to give it a title or a name, right? So this has pleasant lady, a crabby old man, what is that? Grateful maiden, the bride, an awkward youth. So they're all different kinds of trees with different personality in the way they are drawn. Or you may actually find a tree like this to draw. Otherwise, go ahead and use this as sort of like an idea and come up with your own take on it, and maybe you can come up with a tree with a personality on your own. I'll also provide a video about trees that we had before, but drawing different kinds of trees, and then put your own personality into it, okay? And it can be kind of, there can be some humorous or drama to it. You can make it more humanized than, kind of a combination between nature and human. That might work with your character, and that's fine too, okay? So look for that video, look for the tree video, and I may be able to find another video of shading with no lines and watch that. And let's get started with this. Now, that's the end for this weekend. Then we'll talk with you next week. If you haven't got a lot of work to me from the first half of the term, get that to me now because we're in the half. And I'm going to send out a heads up on what your grade is at the moment, probably by Monday. And so I want you to look at that, and you're going to notice, wow, I'm really kind of getting behind, or you're doing really good, and we'll go from there. All right, thanks.